It's Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. Going down to the wire on Amendment 4 in Florida. Trump's McDonald's visit stings the left, and Michigan says you won't know that state's results on election night. Next on the AM Update. Donald Trump visited the devastated Asheville area of North Carolina yesterday to check in on those people and deliver this message.
All of America shares your sorrow and your grief over the past few weeks. This region has seen an extraordinary hardship, but in the midst of such terrible tragedy, we have also seen the extraordinary love that binds us together as Americans.
One of the areas impacted by Hurricane Helene and then, of course, Hurricane Milton is Florida, where two amendments are on the ballot in the Sunshine State. That would be Amendment 4 and Amendment 3. Amendment 4 would legalize basically all forms of baby killing up to birth. Amendment 3 would legalize recreational use of marijuana. Both of those need a 60% threshold to pass. The University of North Florida released a poll yesterday showing that both of those amendments are on track to pass. Jeanette Nunez, the Florida Lieutenant Governor, is one of those voices urging people in Florida to vote no on Amendment 4. Here she is yesterday.
Floridians know that Governor DeSantis will never be deterred from standing for what's right. And I don't say that as Lieutenant Governor. I say that, most importantly, as a mother of three and a woman of faith. And I believe that those of us that prescribe to our faith have a special responsibility to stand up for what is right, to protect life. We are right next door to St. Teresa, one of the most iconic churches in Miami-Dade County. And just yesterday, thousands of people walked through that door and through the doors of churches all around our state to pray, to worship, to hear the word of God. And while I know that one of our doctors said this isn't a religious amendment, here's what I will say. We cannot go to church and pray like Christians and turn around and vote like atheists.
So that is Florida Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunez yesterday talking about and urging Christians to vote no on Amendment 4 if it passes. And that University of North Florida poll says that it's on track to pass. If that thing passes, it's going to legalize all forms of baby killing up till birth. One note about that amendment as well, as Governor DeSantis has pointed out on a few occasions now, the language of the amendment is so vague. If baby killing were to be permitted in that state, it would not even require the assistance of doctors or other medical professionals. Boy, howdy, if an amendment like that passes in a place like Florida, got a lot of work to do. Apparently, the left is really stung by Donald Trump's visit to a Pennsylvania McDonald's over the weekend. This was one of a number of headlines from just one publication, Newsweek, in which they trashed that particular location for failing a health and safety checkup in their most recent inspection. Apparently, their employees weren't washing their hands properly, so, of course, Newsweek is trying to destroy that franchise. On The View yesterday, Governor Tim Walz, running for Democrat vice president, had these words.
She actually worked in a McDonald's. She didn't go and pander and disrespect McDonald's workers by standing there in your red tie and take a picture.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was even more angry.
Donald Trump putting on a little McDonald's costume because he thinks that's what people do. They're not trying to empathize with us. They are making fun of us.
So why is it that the left seems so stung by Donald Trump's visit to McDonald's in Pennsylvania over the weekend? I think it's because whether or not he actually believes this himself, I think it's because he actually is portraying an image that he cares about the everyman, and they recognize that. It makes him look like a sympathetic figure. And of course, that runs contrary to everything that they've brought him up to be, everything that they've made him out to be. And so that's why they're all over this and why it's stung them so badly. That's just my theory. You may have heard this clip running around the last few days. This is one of Kamala's top surrogates, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, discussing Kamala's newfound admiration for fracking.
My interpretation is that she's listened and she has seen the power that natural gas, the power that our energy sources domestically here in the United States have in strengthening our economy and strengthening our national security, just as Joe Biden in 87 talked about.
The worry or the concern is that she's just changed for political reasons. Whereas if there was a real clear national security rationale or reason that felt believable, that would make it more
well, look, I think that's on the vice president to explain her rationale on this.
That is one of Kamala's top surrogates, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, just deferring. That's an interview, by the way, with PBS's Margaret Hoover. He's just deferring to Kamala Harris, basically saying, I have no idea why she was totally against fracking, in favor of a ban on fracking, and now she's for it, trying to make up some reasons why she's listening to people now, but just punts and says, that's up to her to explain. Well, it seems like maybe Kamala's staff, at least, is starting to temper their words on fracking. Harris campaign aides seem to be walking back her support for fracking on the campaign trail. A top campaign staffer told Politico she's not promoting expanding fracking and says she didn't promote expanded leases for fracking in the Inflation Reduction Act. Of course, Harris has repeatedly cited the Inflation Reduction Act leases in campaign events to shore up her bona fides on fracking. So you have Josh Shapiro saying that it's up to Kamala Harris to explain her position on fracking. You've got an unnamed top staffer telling Politico that Kamala isn't actually in favor of expanding fracking. Their messaging is all over the place on this. In Michigan, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson joined CBS News to talk about how she expects election night to go in Michigan.
How quickly do you expect to get results? Well, in 2020, we had the results of our highest turnout election in Michigan history within 24 hours of the polls closing. The unofficial results were completed by 8 p.m. on Wednesday. So we're tracking that again this year. We do have more options to process ballots sooner than Election Day, which is where we were restricted in 2020. So I'm optimistic we could see results even sooner, but I would estimate end of the day on Wednesday as the best guess on how we'll perform. But that said, we will always prioritize accuracy and security over efficiency.
So that is Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson greasing the skids once more, saying, hey, we're not going to have all of the results of the election on election night. Not a huge surprise, but it is what it is. And finally, NFL Hall of Fame coach Tony Dungy, a very strong Christian man, released this message yesterday, going back to the top of the show, encouraging everyone in Florida to vote no on Amendment 4, and it's worth a listen.
This November, Florida voters will be choosing yes or no on Amendment 4, which has been labeled the Right to Abortion Initiative. I urge you to read this amendment very carefully before you vote. I'm convinced if you read it carefully, you will join me in voting no. Amendment 4 was strategically written to be vague and deceptive, giving voters little information about its sweeping impact. Amendment 4 begins this way. No law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability. But it never states when that is. When is a fetus viable? Is it 12 weeks, 24 weeks, 36 weeks? It doesn't say. Under Amendment 4, viability is not defined in law or determined by doctors, but decided by healthcare providers, which could include employees of abortion clinics who are not doctors. The bottom line is, if Amendment 4 passes, there would be no time limit allowing for late-term abortions when science says that the baby can feel pain. The next thing Amendment 4 says is that even when a baby is viable, abortion would still be allowed to protect the patient's health. But what kind of health? Physical health, mental health, emotional health? And how serious must that health concern be? Again, it doesn't say, but allows the same healthcare providers at abortion clinics to make that determination. And while Amendment 4 says that it leaves in place laws that require parental notification, it fails to inform voters that it overturns Florida's law that requires parental consent. making abortion the only medical procedure that can be performed on a minor without the parent's permission. In 2022, in my home state of Michigan, voters approved a similar amendment written by the same lawyers who wrote Amendment 4. Now those lawyers are using that amendment to sue the state of Michigan to force taxpayers to fund elective abortions. The same could easily happen here if Amendment 4 passes. I believe that all mothers deserve health care and protection. Florida's current laws provide exceptions to allow abortions in cases of rape, incest, or to protect the health and life of the mother. But I also believe that all babies in the womb are actual lives in God's eyes, and those babies deserve protection too. I'm asking every Florida voter to read Amendment 4 carefully and don't be deceived by the vague language. We can protect the health of mothers and protect the lives of babies with a better solution that doesn't have so many loopholes and uncertainties. Never before have we been asked to vote on something that is literally a matter of life and death. But that is what Amendment 4 comes down to. Please join me in defending life by voting no on Amendment 4.
So that is NFL Hall of Fame coach Tony Dungy with a powerful message, just educating people on what Amendment 4 in Florida actually does. That is a comprehensive yet concise message, and that'll be a good place to end it. If you live in Florida or you know or have family who live in Florida, make sure they're turning out to the polls to vote against Amendment 4. It's one of the most wicked, extreme measures that I've ever seen covering politics. That'll do it for a Tuesday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.